Alpha King, Varek Nightshade, hated public festivals. He understood their importance. The people liked seeing their ruler. The merchants appreciated royal support. The nobles enjoyed appearing loyal. But after 15 years on the throne, every celebration felt exactly the same. Smile, wave, nod politely, repeat. The summer market overflowing across the harbor district was no exception. Bright banners fluttered above crowded streets. Musicians filled the air with cheerful melodies. Children darted between stalls, carrying pastries and wooden toys. The scent of fresh bread, salt water, and spices drifted through the warm afternoon air. Around him, royal guards escorted the procession carefully through the crowd. Citizens bowed as he passed. Some waved enthusiastically. Others simply stared. Varek responded with practiced ease. Yet his mind remained elsewhere. Trade negotiations awaited him at the palace. Council reports required review. 3 border disputes still needed resolution. The market felt less like an event and more like an interruption. Then everything changed. A scent touched the air. Faint, brief, almost lost among hundreds of others. Varek stopped walking immediately. His wolf exploded awake. The reaction was so sudden it nearly stole his breath. Recognition. Not danger. Not hostility. Recognition. The sensation hit with shocking force. His heart began pounding. Every instinct sharpened. The noise of the marketplace faded. The crowd disappeared. Nothing existed except that scent. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The royal bloodline carried unique traits, unique scents, traits passed through generations of Nightshade alphas, traits his wolf recognized instantly. Yet there was only one problem. Varek had no children. At least, that was what he believed. "Your Majesty?" A guard stepped closer. Concern flashed across the man's face. Varek didn't answer. The scent strengthened. Somewhere nearby, moving. His wolf surged forward. "Find them!" The command echoed through his mind. Before he could react, laughter rang out nearby. 2 young boys burst from between merchant stalls. Both carried wooden practice swords. Both looked about 6 years old. They raced through the crowd, chasing one another, completely unaware of the king standing only feet away. The first boy had dark hair. The second wore the same mischievous grin. They rushed past him, and the moment they did, the scent hit him fully. Varek forgot how to breathe. His wolf nearly lost control. Mine. The word thundered inside him. Not as possession, as certainty. Blood. Family. Pack. The boys skidded to a stop beside a fruit stand, laughing, arguing over who won their imaginary battle. Meanwhile, the Alpha King stood frozen in the middle of the street. The royal procession halted. Guards exchanged confused glances. Citizens stared openly, because kings did not simply stop walking, especially not without explanation. One boy turned briefly. Silver-gray eyes caught the sunlight. Varek's stomach dropped. The resemblance wasn't obvious, not enough for strangers to notice. But he noticed a familiar expression, a familiar tilt of the head, something frighteningly familiar. Then the boys ran again, disappearing into the sea of people. The scent vanished with them. Varek remained motionless, his wolf still roaring, his pulse still racing. Around him, the marketplace slowly resumed moving. But nothing felt normal anymore, because deep inside, the Alpha King knew something he could not explain. Those boys were connected to him, and somehow that terrified him more than any enemy ever had. 6 years earlier, Rowan Evermist believed she was about to tell her husband the happiest news of their lives. Instead, she learned how quickly certainty could disappear. The discovery happened on a rainy morning. The royal physician smiled before she even spoke. "Congratulations, Luna." Rowan stared at her, then at the report, then back at the physician. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Pregnant. The word echoed through her mind. She pressed a hand against her stomach. A small gesture. Protective already. She and Varric had spent years hoping for an heir, years enduring questions from nobles, years pretending the constant pressure didn't bother them. Now, everything was finally changing. Or so she thought. 3 days later, Lady Celeste Thornwick returned to the capital. The timing felt almost cruel. Celeste had once been considered the perfect future Luna. Beautiful, well-connected, born into one of the kingdom's most influential families. Before Varric became king, many believed he would eventually choose her. Then life moved in a different direction. He married Rowan instead. Most people accepted it. Some never did. The moment Celeste returned, old conversations returned with her. Whispers followed through palace corridors. Nobles exchanged knowing looks. Servants repeated rumors. Everywhere Rowan turned, comparisons appeared. At first, she ignored them. Then, they became impossible to ignore. Lady Celeste certainly carries herself like a queen. I always thought fate chose the wrong woman. Imagine how different things might have been. The comments rarely happened directly in front of her. Rarely. That somehow made them worse, because people believed she wouldn't hear. Or perhaps they simply didn't care. Still, Rowan remained patient. She told herself it would pass. Eventually, people would become bored. Eventually, they would move on. Then came the harvest reception. The event should have been ordinary. Music, dancing, politics disguised as celebration. Instead, it became the night everything changed. Rowan stood beside the throne, while nobles filled the ballroom. Across the room, Celeste laughed at something a duke said. Several guests watched her openly. The attention wasn't subtle. Neither were the whispers. Then one noble drank slightly too much wine, a mistake that changed everything. The older man laughed loudly. If fate had worked properly, Lady Celeste would be standing beside the throne. The room froze. Conversations stopped. Music seemed to fade. Every eye turned toward the royal platform, toward Rowan, toward Varric. The insult wasn't the problem. People said foolish things all the time. The problem was what happened next. Nothing. Varric said nothing. Not immediately, not quickly, not at all. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but sometimes a few seconds were enough. Enough to reveal uncertainty. Enough to reveal hesitation. Enough to reveal truths nobody wanted to acknowledge. Rowan felt something inside her quietly settle. Not anger, not heartbreak, understanding. The realization arrived with remarkable clarity. If she remained, her child would inherit this environment. These factions, these rivalries, these endless comparisons. That night, after the palace fell asleep, Rowan packed a single travel bag. She left behind jewels, titles, status, everything except the secret growing beneath her heart. And before sunrise touched the capital, the Luna vanished, taking the kingdom's future with her. Though nobody realized it yet. The twins were born during a storm. Rain hammered the roof of the small cottage Rowan had rented along the western coast. Thunder rolled across the sea, and for the first time since leaving the capital, she felt certain she had made the right decision. 2 boys, healthy, strong, perfect. When the midwife placed them in her arms, Rowan forgot everything else. The palace, the throne, the gossip, the pain. None of it mattered. Only them. She named the first boy Orion, the second Cassian, and from the moment they arrived, her entire world changed. For several months, she considered returning. Not for herself, for them. Every child deserved to know their father. Every father deserved to know his children. More than once, Rowan sat awake late into the night, imagining the conversation. Varek opening the door, seeing the twins, realizing the truth. Part of her wanted that future. Then letters from the capital began arriving. Not personal letters, news reports, merchant rumors, political updates carried by travelers. Each one pushed her further from the idea of returning. The noble factions hadn't disappeared. They had become worse. Several powerful families openly discussed succession. Others debated future alliances. More than one group proposed ways to influence any future royal heir. The reports chilled her, because she knew exactly what those discussions meant. Her sons wouldn't be seen as children. They would be seen as opportunities, weapons, political assets, prizes to be controlled. The thought terrified her, so Rowan made a choice. She stopped waiting for the perfect moment to return and started building a life instead. Years passed quietly. The coastal town became home. She taught reading lessons to local children, helped merchants manage accounts, earned enough to live comfortably. Nothing extravagant, nothing royal, just peaceful. The twins thrived. Orion loved stories. Cassian loved adventures. Together they filled the cottage with noise, laughter, and endless questions. Questions became harder as they grew older, especially one. "Do we have a father?" The first time Orion asked, he was 4. Rowan nearly dropped the bread she was slicing. She recovered quickly. "Yes." The boy considered that. "Where is he?" A more difficult question. Rowan smiled gently. "Far away." It wasn't a lie, just incomplete. Fortunately, young children accepted incomplete answers more easily than adults. The years continued passing. The secret remained safe. No one in the town knew the truth. No one suspected the boys carried royal blood. And Rowan preferred it that way. They played on beaches, collected seashells, practiced with wooden swords, lived ordinary lives, the kind of childhood most royal heirs never experienced. By the time the twins turned 6, Rowan almost believed the danger had passed. The capital felt distant. The throne felt irrelevant. The past felt buried. Then the summer market arrived, the largest celebration of the year. Thousands of visitors filled the harbor district, including one visitor Rowan never expected to see again. And somewhere among the crowded streets, fate was already preparing to unravel 6 years of carefully guarded secrets. The investigation began before the royal procession reached the palace. Varek issued the order from his carriage, quietly, privately, without explanation. "Find the boys." His captain blinked. "The children from the market, Your Majesty?" "Yes." The answer came immediately. Too immediately. The captain wisely asked no further questions. Within an hour, the kingdom's best investigators were working. Ordinarily, locating 2 children in a crowded harbor city would have been difficult. These boys made it easy. 2 6-year-olds carrying wooden swords had been seen almost everywhere. Market vendors remembered them. Fishermen recognized them. A bakery owner even supplied detailed directions. By sunset, the first report arrived. Varek read it alone, twice, then a third time. The details seemed harmless. 2 boys, twins, approximately 6 years old, residents of the Western Harbor District. No registered father, a mother listed under a single name. Rowan ever missed? The report slipped from his hand. For several seconds, he simply stared at the floor, because suddenly everything connected. The scent, the age, the timing, the impossible certainty his wolf refused to abandon. His former Luna, his missing Luna, the woman who vanished 6 years ago, the woman he never found. The room felt strangely quiet. Varek picked up the report again. His eyes stopped on the twins' birth records. 6 years old, exactly 6 years. The realization struck with brutal force. Rowan hadn't left after becoming pregnant. She had already been pregnant when she left. His chest tightened. For years, he had wondered why she disappeared. He imagined dozens of explanations. None of them included children. None of them included sons, his sons. The thought felt unreal. Yet every instinct inside him agreed. The wolf wasn't uncertain, not even slightly. They belonged to him. A knock interrupted his thoughts. The captain entered carrying a second report. This arrived from the local registrar. Varek accepted it immediately. Additional details filled the pages. Residence location, employment records, school registration forms, a simple life, a quiet life, no signs of wealth, no royal connections, nothing suggesting Rowan had once ruled beside a king. For reasons he couldn't explain, that hurt. The woman who once stood beside the throne had built an entirely different existence. Without him, without the kingdom, without anyone knowing who she truly was. The captain shifted uneasily. "Your Majesty?" Varek looked up. When exactly did Rowan leave the capital? The captain understood immediately. His expression changed. 6 years ago. Silence. Then understanding followed. The same realization Varek reached only minutes earlier. Neither man spoke. Neither needed to. The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Finally, the captain cleared his throat. "What would you like us to do?" Varek looked toward the harbor beyond the palace windows. Somewhere in that city, 2 boys were probably still playing with wooden swords, completely unaware their lives were about to change. And somewhere nearby lived the woman who had kept them hidden for 6 years. The woman he hadn't seen since the night she disappeared. Slowly, he folded the reports, then stood. The decision came easily, not as a king, as a father. "Prepare a carriage." The captain nodded. "Where are we going?" For the first time all day, Varek answered without hesitation. Home, because he had finally learned where Rowan lived. And after 6 years, he intended to knock on her door. The cottage overlooked the sea, small, whitewashed, modest, nothing like the palace Rowan once called home. Varek stood outside the front gate as the evening sun painted the harbor gold. For a moment, he simply stared. 6 years. 6 years had passed since he last saw her. 6 years since she disappeared without a goodbye. 6 years since he convinced himself she was gone forever. Now she was only a few steps away. The realization made him unexpectedly nervous. The Alpha King of the realm had faced assassins, rebellions, and wars. Yet somehow, knocking on a cottage door felt more intimidating. Finally, he raised his hand. 3 sharp knocks echoed inside. Footsteps followed. Then silence. The door opened, and the world seemed to stop. Rowan stood before him. For several seconds, neither moved, neither spoke. The years between them stretched across the doorway. She looked different, older, not in age, in experience. There was a calmness about her he didn't remember, a quiet confidence. The same silver eyes met his. Shock flickered briefly, then vanished, replaced by understanding, as if she had always known this day would come eventually. Varek. His name sounded strange after so many years. Soft, careful, real. He swallowed. Rowan. Neither seemed to know what came next. Thousands of questions crowded his mind. None reached his lips. Then chaos arrived. "Mom, Two small voices echoed from deeper inside the cottage. The tension shattered instantly. Footsteps thundered across wooden floors. A moment later, two boys burst into view, carrying wooden practice swords. They stopped abruptly upon seeing the stranger. Curiosity replaced excitement. The twins looked up, Varek looked down, and suddenly everything became painfully obvious. The resemblance was undeniable, not identical, but impossible to miss once seen. Cassian had his eyes, Orion had his stubborn expression. Even the way they stood felt familiar. The sight struck harder than he expected, because reports were one thing, reality was another. These weren't theories, or possibilities, or suspicions. They were children, his children. The boys stared openly. Neither appeared intimidated, a trait that felt alarmingly familiar. Finally, Orion pointed. "Mom, who's he?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Silence followed. Rowan closed her eyes briefly, as though preparing for something difficult. Varek realized this moment mattered. Perhaps more than any conversation that followed, the twins waited patiently, completely unaware of the weight behind the question. Rowan opened her eyes again, then looked at him. For a brief moment, he saw uncertainty. Not fear, not regret, uncertainty. As though she wasn't sure what answer he deserved. The feeling hurt more than he expected, because deep down, he understood why. 6 years was a long time, long enough to miss first steps, first words, first birthdays, an entire childhood already unfolding without him. The realization settled heavily inside his chest. Outside, waves crashed softly against the shore. Inside, a family stood balanced on the edge of a truth that could change everything. And for the first time since discovering the twins existed, Varek understood something important. Finding them had been the easy part. Earning a place in their lives would be much harder. The twins were eventually sent outside. Not far, just far enough to give the adults privacy. Orion and Cassian immediately began an elaborate sword fight in the yard. Their laughter drifted through the open window, a painful reminder of everything Varek had missed. Inside the cottage, silence settled over the small kitchen table. Rowan poured tea, a habit, he noticed, whenever she needed time to think. Some things hadn't changed. Finally, Varek spoke. "You were pregnant when you left." It wasn't a question. Rowan nodded once. "Yes." The simple answer hit harder than he expected. For 6 years, he had searched for explanations. None of them came close to the truth. "You never told me." "No." The word wasn't defensive, just factual. Varek stared at the untouched tea in front of him. "Why?" The question carried more emotion than he intended. Rowan looked toward the window, toward the boys, toward the life she had built. Then she answered, "Because I was afraid." That surprised him. Rowan had never been easily frightened. "Of me?" Her eyes snapped back to his. "No." The answer came immediately. Certain, almost offended. The distinction mattered. Varek felt it instantly. Rowan folded her hands together. "I trusted you." Then her expression darkened. "I didn't trust everyone around you." Silence followed, heavy, uncomfortable, because he understood exactly what she meant. The court, the nobles, the factions constantly fighting for influence, the endless political games. Rowan continued. The moment anyone learned about the twins, they would have become targets. She wasn't exaggerating. He knew that. Royal heirs carried value, and value attracted dangerous people. The kingdom would have fought over them. A pause. Before they could even walk, Varek lowered his gaze. Because she was right. Painfully right. Several powerful families spent years trying to influence future succession. His sons would have become the center of those battles. Not children, assets. The realization made him sick. I could protect them. Rowan's expression softened. I know. The answer surprised him. She smiled sadly. That's why I said I trusted you. Another pause. But kings aren't everywhere. The words landed heavily, because they were true. Varric could defeat armies. He could pass laws. He could command the kingdom. Yet he couldn't watch every hallway, every servant, every noble, every whispered conversation. The throne created enemies, and children often paid the price. Outside, laughter erupted again. Cassian apparently declared victory. Orion strongly disagreed. The argument made Rowan smile, a genuine smile, one he hadn't seen in years. Varric watched her quietly, then finally asked the question that haunted him most. Do you regret it? The answer came without hesitation. No, not a second of doubt, not a moment of uncertainty. Rowan looked toward the yard again, at the boys chasing one another through the grass. They had 6 years of freedom. Her voice softened. 6 years of being children. No court, no politics, no succession debates. Just life, the simple kind. The kind most royal heirs never experienced. For the first time, Varric understood something important. Rowan hadn't stolen 6 years from him. She had given 6 years to them. And suddenly, that distinction changed everything. Varric stayed longer than he intended. 1 day became 3. 3 became a week. Officially, he remained in the harbor district to review trade concerns. Unofficially, everyone knew better. The Alpha King was learning how to be a father. The process was both wonderful and painful, mostly painful. Not because the twins rejected him. Quite the opposite. Orion and Cassian accepted him with surprising ease. Children often judged people differently than adults. They cared less about titles and history, more about actions. And Varric quickly discovered that 6-year-old boys had very specific expectations. They wanted stories, games, sword practice, answers to impossible questions, and endless amounts of attention. By the 3rd day, both boys had decided he was useful, which seemed to qualify as affection. Varric accepted the promotion. One afternoon, he sat beside the shore, helping Cassian carve a small wooden boat. The boy concentrated fiercely, tongue sticking out slightly, determined to succeed. Varric smiled despite himself. You're stubborn. Cassian looked up. So Mom says. The answer made him laugh, because Rowan had once said exactly the same thing about him. Later that evening, Orion proudly showed him a collection of seashells. Each one carried a story, where it was found, why it mattered, how it earned a place in the collection. Varric listened carefully, not because the shells interested him, because Orion did. And every new discovery carried a strange ache. The first time Cassian laughed, gone. The first time Orion learned to read, gone. First birthdays, first scraped knees, first victories, first failures, gone. An entire childhood filled with moments he would never get back. The realization followed him constantly. One night, after the boys fell asleep, he sat alone outside the cottage. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and rain. Rowan joined him quietly. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, she broke the silence. You keep looking sad. The observation startled him, because it was true. Varric stared toward the dark horizon. I'm trying not to. Rowan waited, patient, the way she always had. Eventually, he admitted the truth. I missed everything. The words felt heavier once spoken aloud. I missed 6 years. Silence followed. Not uncomfortable, just honest. Rowan looked toward the cottage window, toward the sleeping twins. So did they. Varric frowned. What? She smiled softly. They missed you too. The statement caught him off guard, because he had focused entirely on his own loss, not theirs. Rowan continued. Every child wonders about their father. A pause. Even when they don't ask. The thought lingered. Uncomfortable. Important. For the first time, he realized those missing years belonged to all three of them, not just him. The following morning, the twins cornered him during breakfast. Orion climbed into a chair. Cassian sat beside him. Both wore identical expressions. Dangerous expressions. The kind children made when planning something. Varric immediately became suspicious. He was right. Orion folded his arms. We have a question. Cassian nodded seriously. A big one. Varric exchanged a glance with Rowan. She looked equally concerned. Then both boys spoke at once. Are you our father? The room became completely silent. The question hung in the air. Simple. Direct. Impossible to avoid. Are you our father? Varric looked at Rowan. Rowan looked at Varric. Neither had expected the moment to arrive so quickly. Unfortunately, children rarely waited for perfect timing. The twins sat patiently, expectantly, watching both adults with remarkable focus. Finally, Varric answered. Yes. The word felt strange, powerful, important. For a moment, neither boy reacted. Then Cassian blinked. Oh, that was all. Just, oh. Varric stared. After 6 years of imagining impossible conversations, that wasn't the response he expected. Apparently, children viewed life differently. Orion seemed more interested. Really? Varric nodded. Really? The boy considered this carefully, then pointed toward the practice swords leaning against the wall. Does that mean you'll teach us properly? The Alpha King laughed. Relief flooded the room. The twins exchanged excited grins. The crisis was officially over. At least for them. The kingdom proved considerably less calm. News traveled quickly, especially news involving royal heirs. Within days, rumors reached the capital. Within a week, the entire kingdom knew. Alpha King Varric Nightshade had twin sons. The revelation exploded through noble society. Council members demanded meetings. Political families suddenly remembered distant connections. Several nobles attempted immediate introductions. Others proposed future alliances. One particularly ambitious duke suggested arranging educational oversight. Varric rejected every proposal. Immediately. Firmly. Repeatedly. His patience vanished faster than expected. For years, those same people had discussed hypothetical heirs, like pieces on a game board. Now they wanted access to his actual children. The answer remained no. The twins stayed in the harbor district. Protected, undisturbed, free. For perhaps the first time in his reign, Varric prioritized family above politics. The decision shocked many people. He didn't care. Meanwhile, something else began changing. Slowly. Carefully. Rowan started trusting him again. Not completely. Not yet. But enough. Enough to share meals together. Enough to laugh occasionally. Enough to stop expecting disappointment around every corner. The progress felt fragile. Varric treated it accordingly. One evening, the family walked along the shoreline. The twins raced ahead, collecting seashells, arguing loudly about who found the best ones. The setting sun painted the ocean gold. For a few peaceful minutes, everything felt normal. Varric glanced toward Rowan. Thank you. She looked surprised. For what? For protecting them. The answer came easily, because he finally understood. The 6 years he lost hurt, but the 6 years the twins gained mattered more. Rowan looked toward the boys. A small smile appeared. They deserved a childhood? Yes. Varric watched his sons chase waves, laughing, carefree, safe. They did. The silence that followed felt comfortable. Not awkward, not strained, just peaceful. Then Varric made a decision, one he had been considering for days, perhaps longer. He turned toward Rowan, his expression serious. "What if you came home?" The question stopped her immediately. The ocean breeze moved through her hair. The twins continued playing in the distance, unaware their future might be changing once again. Rowan stared at him, thoughtful, cautious, and, for the first time since he found them, Varric realized he had no idea what her answer would be. Rowan didn't answer immediately. For several days, she thought about it. The question deserved that much. Returning to the capital wasn't a simple decision. It wasn't about the palace, or the throne, or even Varric. It was about Orion and Cassian. Everything had always been about them. For 6 years, every choice she made centered on their safety, their happiness, their future. Now she had to decide whether that future belonged in the kingdom she once left behind. The twins complicated matters considerably, because they were delighted by the idea. The moment they learned the capital contained a royal library, training grounds, and approximately 1,000 new places to explore, their opinions became very clear. "Can we see the palace?" Cassian asked. "Is there really a giant throne?" Orion added. "Do kings have secret tunnels?" The last question appeared surprisingly important. Varric wisely refused to answer. Eventually, Rowan realized something. The capital wasn't the same place she had left, nor was Varric the same man. The silence that once drove her away no longer existed. The uncertainty she once saw in him had changed. Fatherhood had altered him. Responsibility often did. One evening, she found him sitting beside the shore, watching the twins play. For a while, she simply observed. The boys adored him now, not because he was king, because he showed up every day, consistently, patiently. That mattered. Finally, Rowan sat beside him. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, beautiful and calm. "I'll come back." Varric turned toward her, surprised, relieved. Neither emotion remained hidden very well. Rowan laughed softly. "Don't look so shocked. I was trying not to hope." Poorly. The answer earned a smile, a real one, the kind she hadn't seen from him in years. Several months later, the kingdom welcomed its future heirs. The announcement transformed the capital. Crowds filled the streets. Banners decorated every building. Church bells rang from sunrise until sunset. Yet the moment people remembered most wasn't the ceremony. It was the twins. Orion and Cassian waved enthusiastically from the palace balcony, then immediately began arguing over who received more cheers. The debate lasted the entire afternoon. The kingdom loved them instantly. Years later, historians would describe the discovery as one of the strangest succession stories in royal history. The Alpha King found his heirs because of a scent carried through a crowded marketplace. Technically, that was true, but it wasn't the entire story. The real story belonged to Rowan, the woman who spent 6 years protecting 2 boys from a world eager to claim them, the woman who carried a secret, not out of revenge, not out of anger, but out of love. And Varric never forgot it, because becoming a king taught him how to rule. Becoming a father taught him what mattered. Sometimes power demanded sacrifice. Sometimes leadership required difficult choices. But childhood was different. Once lost, it never returned. Standing beside Rowan and their sons, Varric finally understood something he wished he had learned years earlier. A kingdom could survive uncertainty. A child could not reclaim lost years. The future of the Nightshade bloodline had never been hidden in politics or prophecy. It had been running through a summer market, carrying a wooden sword and scraped knees, waiting for a father to recognize its scent.